have. So right now we're live. So happy to be here again today with my good friend and cohort, Karl Dakin. We were just talking about some amazing results that we're both starting to identify and achieve. And I'm really excited by Karl's new initiative, which is January 14th, and his workshop that's coming up. 16th? Okay, well, 14th is get ready for the 16th. With that said, today's word is franchising. We rely and depend on chat to make us as relevant as possible, create some great takeaways, and it's a good opportunity to get to know myself and Karl in ways that can help you, going forward beyond just the show. So with that, I'll turn it right back to Karl, and can kind of give a little bit of a thumbnail on those who don't know Karl as well, and initial thoughts on franchising. So Karl, honored to have you again.
Thanks, Donna. It's really a honor to be on your show, and I appreciate the opportunity to share some of my knowledge of what I know about funding, which is kind of where I'm at. That I am a capital coach. I work with businesses, community organizations, different civic projects to help them put together and stage and conduct capital campaigns to raise funding for whatever it is that they're trying to do. And as a coach, I do a lot of designing of plays. I design the plays to fit the characters, to fit the situation, and work with virtually any kind of capital, and not just limited to cash, but we talk about doing deals with people, with equipment, sharing different assets, whatever gets the job done, which is something that that organization needs in order to either start or to move forward. So as a coach through my company, Dakin Capital, I try to share as much information as I can for free. So I have my own newsletter, Instant Funding, Monday to Friday. I have my own Successful Funding show, which Don was kind enough to be my guest on yesterday morning. That's on every Tuesday at 10 o'clock Eastern time. I invite people to contact me for 15-minute chats about their funding challenge. I have an AI avatar on my website, CAP, standing for Capital, who can answer your questions about funding 24/7, 365. And those are all free. Then, occasionally I may be able to help more than that, do a deep dive and do that as a consultant, advisor, or even a team member working with a company or a community project to go forward. And I work with people all across the United States. I have an educational project we're doing down in Belize, and I'm advancing a concept of community investment funds that was originated by the National Coalition for Community Capital. And Monday night, I was deep into artificial intelligence. So all of them are tied together because money is needed to move things forward, and I'm trying to help those make that happen.
Well, that's great. So I guess that would qualify as a definition of the Renaissance man today. So happy to be with someone who is so really focused on helping people and providing the resources, whether it's knowledge or financing, in order to optimize that opportunity. I was just still listening to my Leonardo da Vinci Audible, which reminds me of other Renaissance men that Karl's in great company with. With that, talking a little bit about franchising, and really what franchising, the essence of it is, and the true value is leveraging someone else's expertise and experience so that you don't have to go through the trials and tribulations. And there's a lot of people who are good at a lot of things, but not at everything. And it really kind of fills the gaps in the ability to open, operate, and be successful with partners who are not just directly related to you, but have relationships with individuals like you already who are in the same situation, that you can get the benefit of shared knowledge and experience and community. And I believe that's kind of, what everybody has to a certain extent is a franchise, which is who they are, what they do, and the experience and knowledge they bring to the table. It's not always developed in a way that someone can just call it a turnkey, but one can build a community of individuals who are like-minded, like-directed, and actually we've got that. We've got a cohort group that is focused on live streamers that happens every other Thursday by Zoom, and we also align with that community and co-promoting, becoming guests on each other's show, really creating a lot of support that's important and necessary for an individual, because a one-man show might be impressive, but it only goes so far as the one man is concerned. So why not be a smaller part of something big and have all that support around you? So when was your first experience identifying a franchise or relating to one?
Well, my work over the last 45 years has included many, many startups, a lot of them tech-oriented, bleeding edge innovation, because I have some unusual talent to be able to understand tech and translate that into a business model and make it then eligible for funding. So I've run across a lot of companies as they get started and they're looking for funding, where they've been successful to a point. They've created a store, they are making money, there's all there, and they're going, well, I need more money to grow up. And at that point, they have a path. They have two doors to choose from. They can raise all the money into their existing business and create more stores, cloning themselves, where they own the store completely outright under their full management. But under franchising, door B, they go, well, I could do that. I could bring in the money myself, or I could help somebody else start a business that does exactly what I'm doing. And they have to raise the money to set up that store and get it going, and they have to operate it. And this gives this first company, the franchisor, and a capability of growing quicker, faster, because instead of bringing everything together in a common monolith, they can create a bunch of satellites, which are all maybe a better business model, size, funding, the whole 9 yards. And they can replicate rapidly like a virus, in a positive virus, as opposed to a pandemic virus. And so it becomes a form of funding for the first business, the franchisor. But for that new person to come in and duplicate or replicate what the first guy was doing, they need money. So there's a need for funding at some level by somebody. Now, sometimes people come in and go, hey, I just retired. I've got all the money from my retirement. I want to start a business. Instead of starting one from scratch with all the risk and development and experimentation that goes into that, which I unfortunately enjoy more than I should, but if you want to avoid all that, you could go to a franchisor and go, I like what you're doing. I'd like to do that as well. Pay them a franchise fee, which is basically a purchase price for their body of knowledge and support and supply systems and all the things they've already worked out. And you can jump into business almost immediately with everything already in place. So it removes a lot of the front end risk. It creates a level of certainty in what you're going to do and how you're going to do it going forward. It's not complete, meaning you still have to create your clone, you still have to build it, install it, put it in place and operate it in a new location. Typically, these are geographically located, but not always. And now we've got two businesses working together in a team. One's the originator, one's the copy, and they're both benefiting from each other by continuing to share in revenue, experience, knowledge, and so forth. And what I particularly like about the franchisee model They're not all good. They're not all great. But about the model is that every other franchisee is like part of a club. If I needed to know how to do something, I could pick up the phone and call any of the other franchisees and go, how did you solve this particular problem? And I have like an immediate access to a very niched type of knowledge for me that helps me succeed as I want to move out. So I've worked with franchises, I've worked with multi-level marketing programs, I've worked with almost every type of business structure that's out there through my career. And franchises are one of those models that works very well. They're under a different set of regulations. They're under the FTC as opposed to SEC rules. But if you want to start a business in a hurry, you've got some money in your pocket, and you don't enjoy starting stuff from scratch, take a look at franchising and consider it as a viable choice for you to take a look at.
Yeah, that's well, those are words with great value. I've also been exposed to network marketing or multi-level marketing. I've been involved with franchises as a source of supply for them. I remember when I was in Michigan, had a little tool store out there. One gentleman came in and owned like 13 Midas mufflers and bought just a boatload of tools every month, would come in, and I was so happy because he would have never had 13 if he would have started on his own. And the majority of everybody I've come in contact with who bought franchises, and I'm sure there was a golden era, probably the late 60s and moving on. I remember Burger King opened their first location in my area, and people were buying McDonald's at the get-go for like 10 grand, and then later on became multimillionaires. But they took a risk because they took a risk early when companies were just getting on their feet. Once a franchise proves itself and you can generate, let's say, $200,000 worth of income for $1 million investment, well, you're not going to get 10 times, but the risk has been reduced. And the other thing is, in most cases, territories are protected, right? So if you go off on your own, do your own burger thing, and 2 days later, another one shows up, now you've got undue or unnecessary competition, which is hard to undo. The other big thing that I think can apply to anybody's business is, what is your core competency? And some people are just great operators, but they're kind of at a loss for marketing, for supply, and how much can one person do? And if they try to do it, they're going to be doing it in-house, which means probably hiring people that won't get full utilization as much as tapping into a program. And hopefully the margins are there for everybody. And I think that's key. A franchisor can't charge too much, or the franchisee won't make enough money to justify the investment and stay in a business. And if a franchisee doesn't pay their royalties and commissions, then the supplier won't be in a position financially to continue to grow and to continue to make profits. So there has to be a middle ground where everybody's happy. And the challenge to franchisors is everybody loves you when they don't know anything. When you teach them everything, that same commission is questioned. It's like, well, I know this now. In the beginning, and it's, the same thing with consultants. I talked to a couple successful consultants. I said, well, my first 3 hours are worth about $5,000 an hour, and then it goes down to about 300 after that.
That's
right. Because that's you're teaching people new things. It's really dramatic. After that, how do you what have you done for me lately comes into play, whether you're a franchise or a consultant, and you have to engineer your business, and that takes a lot of legal elements too for protections for both parties. So a franchisee wants to know that, how am I protected against competition, or against you going from 4% to 8% in 2 months just based on whatever. And I think the key is getting comfortable, and naturally integrity is important, reputation is important. I don't know the ins and outs, but I'm sure McDonald's is just as concerned with integrity as anything else, and also the integrity of royalties, right? Because how do you make sure that when the person says we sold 1,000 burgers, they really didn't sell 2,000, or they weren't buying their beef from somebody else half of the time at a discount? So there's a lot of, let's say, inspection that's required, and accountability, right? It's like justify, and if it's a really quality operator, usually they're running really efficiently and they're proud to be able to say, well, we just installed a new infrastructure and that's going to create more efficiency at lower cost. It's a competitive model, but the good thing about it is you're never alone. And that's another thing. They give you a huge manual. They give you a customer service number that, hey, this isn't showing up in the manual and it happened to me. What do I do? And I think that's important, especially as you get stronger. You have to feel some obligation or commitment for someone to get you going. Sometimes it's not always there as far as loyalty. But I always found, especially, and I wasn't too heavily involved in network marketing, but it was always something me and my wife would find something we believed in, and it never was load a guy's garage up with pharmaceuticals. It was usually $100 entry fee and so much a month, so it wasn't prohibited. It was a great way to meet other people and build a community. And most of these organizations have unbelievable events that if someone wants to go to, with great speakers and the ability to build relationships. And in a sense, LinkedIn is that type of community too, where people are codependent to a certain extent, and have opportunities to reach out and share their knowledge, but also their opportunities, and create or co-create opportunities together. And it could be one-time situations, or it could be on a continuous basis. But it's really about, how do you amplify your reach? How do you do more than you could have done by yourself? And how do you have a little bit more fun? Because most people look at the bottom line, but is it a franchise that you get excited about going to every day? Do you like sitting behind a counter? And usually the best franchises are the owner operators, not the owners who come in, buy it, and have some person at whatever number per year do it. Because the reason why it's so important is because it's yours. And things that are yours, you take better care of. You probably don't hire someone until you've fully utilized your own benefit of time and probably family members. It's a good place for kids to grow up and participate in. So it's not all size fits all. It doesn't always work the way it should. But then again, people put you in business. Now it's your idea on how to operate it. It's not your idea to bring pizza into a McDonald's. So there is certain things you got to stay true to form. And like I mentioned, in every organization I was affiliated with, there was no shortcuts. Anybody who took shortcuts hurt themselves and hurt the business. Everybody who thought, well, I know better, I could take what they have and twist it. They want every franchisee to have the best shot they have, because it gives them the best shot, And why would you pay for something from somebody long term if you weren't willing to follow it? And so I think it's the same thing like what we're doing here, live streaming, LinkedIn. There's best practices, there's acting with integrity, there's honoring people in the relationships you have. Because a lot of times it's the service that makes the difference, not the product. If you feel comfortable, I know even like in regular restaurants, if the owner knows you by name, makes you feel happy, the food can be a little bit less than somewhere where you don't feel like anybody cares. They're not as attentive. And, that I think is the American dream, is having people go in business for themselves, chart their own destiny with the support of others. And I know from maybe 60, 70 years ago, it was a little bit more treacherous. The FTC wasn't as focused as things are now, and there is a lot of protections. There's a lot of recourse that one can leverage if they need to. In most cases, everything is, to a franchisee, or I believe they want you to have a good experience. They've been through it enough. They understand when you're having issues. But it's also your job to make sure things are clean, things are neat, the stores are open on time. You deliver on your message and their message. So I'm a big proponent of it based on when it works for both parties well. And the other thing is going in with your eyes wide open, right? Read all of the information, get a lawyer to help you with it, make you understand and appreciate what you're getting into, what the expectation is. And it is, a lot of sweat equity along with financial interest. So, Karl, how do you see the franchise model kind of relating to other people's situations who aren't in a formal franchise, but they want to build a collaborative effort or activity with other parties?
Well, to me, one of the potential advantages of the franchise model is the ability to scale rapidly. And meaning that if I wanted to start a business and then I wanted to grow that business with multiple locations across the United States, around the world, that takes time. Every step going forward requires that I have to recruit people, I have to bring them on board, I have to raise the funding, I have to do all the things to replicate that business going forward. And there are certain products and services that enter the market every day that want to get in place as quickly as possible, partly because they may be obsoleted from a technical standpoint or some other standpoint. So if I have a business where I think it can be adopted quickly and can scale rapidly by working through a franchise model, then I will choose that over other ways of growing up and expanding what I'm doing. And this is right now, as I mentioned, I was at the Rocky Mountain AI meetup on Monday night. We were looking at all kinds of businesses that couldn't have existed 2 years ago, simply technically couldn't exist. And one of them was doing services and supporting people with domestic abuse. They are talking about getting to 30 million potential users in the first 24 months of operation. Now, is this something that could be franchisable? We'd have to look at the model, but it's something that AI now says you can do this or do that. Do we need to have a physical presence versus a virtual presence? Or, how does this all fit together? That's all part of the business modeling. But I see a lot of new technology come into the market, and it struggles to get started because that first instance is where all the experimentation, and you work out all the bugs, you figure out what works and doesn't work. It's why a lot of times you made the statement that after they learn everything, they go, well, this is kind of Captain Obvious stuff. Everybody should have known that. And I go, yeah, but you didn't see all my bandaged fingers from every time I hit my finger with a hammer doing it the wrong way. And you avoided all that pain. That's what this franchise fee is all about, is to avoid all the things that could go wrong and often go wrong, because somebody's already figured that out. They've put that in the rearview mirror, and you can now move on and focus on the future. That allows each of those people to move faster forward, and they're working with a proven model to some degree. It may be still highly dependent upon the operator to make it successful. And I mean, a lot of you have driven down the street and seen a windshield repair place, a little pop-up tent, and somebody's out there. That's a franchise. They show them how to do it. They give them the materials. They know where to buy it. They know what the price is going to be. But 90% of this is the person showing up every day, putting in the labor to do the repairs. But it gives that person that sense of independence, of entrepreneurship that a lot of people want. And I'm one of those people. So I appreciate, somebody doing that and making a service available that's highly convenient, that addresses a need in the community. So as we look at this, there's so many different things we could talk about in franchising that have advantages, but the franchisor has to do their job. They have to continuously provide support. They have to be out there every day getting that supply chain set up so you get the best possible price where you can compete against anybody, including competing against Amazon or anyone else who can deliver to the door, in minutes after placing an order. So we're seeing a lot of businesses go out of business because they had a physical presence, but that really didn't make the difference. At the same time, we're seeing new products, new services come into the marketplace. Franchising might be the right answer for them to grow up and grow fast. But the thing I've been working on recently is that franchisors have same issue that anyone does, that they don't have all the money to do it all in-house. That's why they chose franchising. But their franchisee candidates, the prospects to become franchisees, they may not have all the money necessary for them to set up and start operating a franchise out of the box. So I've been putting out there to franchisors the concept of why don't you create an educational program to teach your prospects how to raise enough capital that they can buy into your franchise. And not only does it then give that franchisee the money they need to get started, but it's kind of a proof positive. If you can go out and raise money in a campaign and understand how to raise funding, then that means you're probably going to be a really good franchisee prospect because you're already thinking in terms of your customer and who you work with and how you interface with your community and these other things that too often are not taught. They're not taught in school. It's not too often. They're never taught in school. And you're getting to understand that every business is a cog in a community. Everything you do is dependent to some degree upon your social interaction with people. And then, Don, as you and I have talked about, at the end of the day, everybody you know, every relationship you have where you establish a high level of trust, this is your primary asset, whether you're a franchisor or a franchisee, or you're getting ready to start a new business out there. If people don't know you, they don't understand the value you bring. If they don't trust you to bring that value, why would they talk with you? Why would they buy anything from you? And I've seen a lot of great franchises are able to help the franchisees tell that story, get the value of the brand behind the franchisor. But to me, and also as importantly, is the whole system's been figured out. It's night and day difference between starting up a business and you're not even sure whether the coffee cup goes on the left side or the right side of the desk, because it's more efficient that way. So having someone who's been through the drill, who understands what to do and not to do, and give you a paint by number kit, that's got high value.
Yeah, and there's, thinking of what you're saying, there's different variations that don't qualify, let's say, as a franchise, but can qualify as a benefit to you. One is a co-op, right? And they've been around a long time. So in other words, when you pool your buying together, if you want to buy through True Value, right? They're the ones who are doing all the heavy negotiations with the vendors, save you from seeing 80 different sales reps and trying to sharpen your pencil every time. I was just actually talking to my son-in-law, who's really very, very big in e-commerce and everything else. And he actually ran that side of my business for about 8 years. And we were a big UPS customer. And actually we're top 15 or 20 in the state with the volume we were doing. And I said, well, how? I said, I just saw where UPS laid off 400 drivers, And he says, yeah. And he says, you won't believe it, but the Postal Service is getting all the business. And because, there's different organizations that you tell them where you're shipping and they give you the best rate, right? So it could be UPS, it could be FedEx, DHL, and it always 95% is USPS, and it chooses it for you. So you don't even have to decide. And it's part of Zip something, I don't know the name, but the point is all you do is select a location, and you could be sending one package or a million packages. You're going to get that rate based on participating in that program. I don't know what it is or how it is. But a lot of things that used to be dependent on franchisors is now available to individual companies that weren't there before. The other big thing is logistics. In the past, almost most franchises were product franchises, right? It was a hardware store, a food place, and that meant someone had to order the stuff, a truck had to deliver it, you had to stock it, and then you had to reorder it. Well, when you're into virtual franchises where it's more knowledge based or collective, you save a lot of that time and effort, and you have a much bigger market. So, where someone says, here's your corner, and that's where your McDonald's is, your market is about a square mile or so until it gets to the next McDonald's or bumps into the Wendy's or Burger King. But if it's like a tax, like Jackson Hewitt, I mean, they have everybody, not everybody, but there's physical locations and there's virtual capabilities. And a lot of those won't limit you. So it really comes down to a couple things: work ethic, the ability to be creative where you can be creative. And there's things that people don't appreciate until they get into it, like even signage. Create your own logo, create signage for a store. And maybe you love purple, but purple turns everybody off. Where somebody, again, like McDonald's, has tested what are the best colors, and it's also recognizable. The whole idea with a McDonald's, whether you eat one in Phoenix or Baltimore, it should be the same experience, the same burger. It's not someone who says we got different sauces. But what's interesting about McDonald's, even Costco's, different lands have different assortments. I've seen Costco's in China that are selling all kinds of weird animals, and maybe I shouldn't call them weird, or fishes that would scare people here. But, again, you have to relate to the culture and the environment that you're in. A rural location is different in a Ace Hardware than an urban location. And it's really just saying, where do you want to spend most of your time? Where are you going to have the most fun? And if you're an operator or a marketer, that should be something that affects your judgment as to choosing something. If it takes advantage of something you're already good at, love doing, because it's hard work and it takes a while to break even. And, if you're going to lay out $1 million or $2 million, that's a sizable chunk of money, knowing you're going to work for 60 hours a week for a long time before you start to see something. But, it's also about trust and innovation. And I think, to Karl's point, when all of these new technology opportunities present themselves, it changes everybody's business model. What used to be sound is obsolete now. Ask the guy who was doing horseshoes when the first Model T was driving down the road. The smart guy saw the light and said, hey, I want to get a dealership or a repair shop. The other person says, I'm just going to get more horseshoes and get better at it. And you see what that turns out. Now the life cycle, because I used to kind of study that, if you go back to department stores, and they really hit their zenith like late 1800s, and they lasted about 100 years. They were a strong vehicle. Then came in discount stores like Kmart and Walmart, and they had like a 20 or 30-year cycle. And then you had the big box stores and the specialty retailers. And then that diminished. And now every so often, because of a new technology, all of a sudden takes advantage of that and puts somebody off to the side who can't operate at that point, or again, the franchisor wasn't keeping up. I think it's the operator can keep up because they're sitting there from 8 to 8 doing their thing, but is it efficient? And is it snappy enough? Now people want change for change's sake. People are just bored at times. It could be great service, great product, but where's a Pizza Hut compete with someone who just showed up in the market? And maybe you got to kind of figure in planned obsolescence, figure, hey, this is going to be a 7-year run. And, even in my business, I bootstrapped it. I was in business for 37 years. I didn't knowingly do anything in that regard, but I knew every 5 years I had to reinvent myself. If I wasn't ready for the next move, I wasn't going to be part of it. But what I did do, which was interesting, is find what was unique to the marketplace. And coming to Denver, what I realized, it had Rocky Mountain News and Denver Post, which if you did that, you didn't have to do pretty much anything else. Electronic media was a small portion, but they didn't have zone advertising. Coming from Detroit, you had the South, the North, you could just buy that region and only pay for it because nobody's going to drive 40 miles. And in Denver, they didn't have it. So the idea is if you became a big enough advertiser, put enough stores there, and you would only have 1/5 of the cost per store than if you had one store and you had to buy the ad. And actually, there was a gentleman out in Aurora, Big Toolbox, was a competitor, and he had a huge store in Havana. Nice guy, got to know him. And I started with nothing, and pretty soon he couldn't compete. He was running 2-page ads with one location. I was running 2-page ads with 8 locations. And actually, that was my biggest expense, but it was leveraged. So how do you take advantage of efficiencies that are already in the market, but nobody's identified with it because they just grew up that way? And after a while, that's the way it is, and that's the way it has been. But now things could change. And I think being, nimble on your toes, also being aware of the industry, getting those trade publications, going to those conferences, learning from the people who are making changes. And today it's even easier because of social media of being part of a niche group. The other side of the coin is if you have a good business, you can become a franchisor. So there's an opportunity to say, hey, I just created 3 donuts shops, and here's what makes them so special compared to Dunkin' Donuts or whoever's in the marketplace. And then you get together and there's organizations who can groom and take you to the next level of franchising. So again, there's a support there. It's really understanding what do you want to do, and are you open-minded, and the kind of individual that works well with organizations. Rebels don't do very well, because after a while you become a pain in the ass to the franchisor. Oh, it's Ludwig over there doing another one of his crazy ads that aren't justified or authorized, and you don't want to be a policeman for everything. And I guess that's by knowing other people and learning what is the best practice. But if you're going to buy in, I would say buy in full throttle. If you're going to do it the way they say you should do it, or at least be part of, I'm sure they have committees, right, where they have franchisees who represent the bigger franchisees that go there with demands or requirements or expectations and negotiate for everybody. It's a fun thing, but it has its ups, it has its downs. I wouldn't do it, like I say, just blindly, especially if it's huge fees. Or a lot of times they give you a lot of noise with a lot of smoke and not a lot of fire. So it's one thing to say that they're going to do something, and how do they do it? And again, that's like anything else. If you're going to buy a business, get some references, talk to other dealers, and say, what is your experience? And I think that would give either more confidence or a little bit more heads up to say, I got to walk a little bit softly around here. But I think I'm sure there's people who can swear by it and say, if it wasn't for this, I would have never been able to do that. But it is business, and not everything a franchisor can do can protect you in business based on situations beyond their control. But I would say virtual things where you can be part of something doesn't cost a lot. They give you more knowledge than they give you anything else, and continued support. But one could say that about any business relationship, that everybody has to live up to a certain level of expectation and standards, and always putting your customers first, always putting your franchisees first, because if you take care of them, hopefully you'll get taken care of, and everybody just needs to stand up when it's time, and answer the bell. So it's a fun time we're living in, Carl. A lot of dynamic change. Really, I'd say now more choices than one can choose. So whatever you want to do in franchising, whether you want to have a dog uh, manicure type of place, grooming would be probably a better word, or you want to get into hard goods like selling mufflers or anything you want, there's probably something there. Again, it is hard work, it is an investment, but it also minimizes risk, and you're getting a great deal of information right up front that you don't have to pay dearly for. And hopefully, it gives you a somewhat of a clean path to a direction, as opposed to just a lot of excitement and ambition. They say when you start a business, your excitement level is as high as it'll ever be, and your knowledge is as low as it'll ever be. And if your knowledge doesn't increase, your excitement will decrease, and then you're back to square one again. What say you to that, Carl?
No, it's totally true. I have people walk into my office with a new idea and they say, I want to start a business around my idea. And I start asking questions like, how much information have you gathered? How much market testing have you done? And so on. And I often make fun of venture capitalists where they go, well, we need a $1 billion idea. And I go, did you test the idea before you invested the $1 billion? Because the usual path is the first time you add one piece of information, the value goes down by half. And you add two pieces of information, it falls another half. And suddenly you're dealing with reality, and the reality tends to not be nearly as attractive or aspirational as it was when you're way up here with this brand new idea. You're going, wow, this is great. Everybody's going to want one. Well, yeah, but what's your cost? What's your business model? Do you have all the money you need? Are you going to need help? What is this going to look like? And if it may turn out that it's still a great idea, that you're not the right person to execute on that idea and bring it to market. Somebody else is better at that than you are. Or you need a team of people and everything gets more complex in a hurry as you have to put that team together and everybody get behind it. So, yeah, I see a lot of stuff come forward that you look at, you go, this is a natural for franchising, and a lot of stuff doesn't quite fit. It's like everything else. There are multiple choices on how to bring any idea to market. I've done a lot of work in technology licensing, which comes up to the edge of franchising sometimes because the person who's got the idea wants to impose quality control, make sure customers get the value that is supposed to come out of the idea, avoid the shortcutting, the experimentation that may take them off the road, off the rails. When you license correctly, it's no longer considered by states and the feds as a business opportunity. So there's an interesting dividing line as you cross from franchising into licensing and back again, that you may find out licensing is an easier way to offload a lot of the work onto someone else, but there isn't that same support, that same stand behind it. But if I were a franchisee candidate today looking at different prospects, I would be asking one of my primary questions to the franchisor is, what's your R&D department? What's your creative next best thing department taking place? Because every time you put money into a franchisor, it's your investment. That's your cash up front. It's your payments over time for buying the knowledge, the systems that are there. But if those systems are on the verge of becoming obsolete because of market changes, then it's a bad investment. You're not going to have the business open long enough to recoup your investment and get paid back for everything that you're going to do. So it's like everything else. If you've never run a business, go get some help. If you've run a business and it's of a one type, maybe you should get some advice from people who've done the type that you're now looking at. I see a lot of people who have been successful in small businesses try to cross into another business and fail miserably, which means either they didn't learn the lesson the first time, or this new market is so radically different that it's enough to tip them over into something that it's outside their competency, it's outside their skill base, or they brought across a lot of junk information that worked perfectly in that market, doesn't work in this market at all. So it's like everything else. You got to make sure you as a person fit the business opportunity, that you understand your markets. You can bring all the resources to bear on that particular opportunity. And if it fits you well, you'll have a good time. You'll have a reasonable work-life balance. Even if you're still working 60 hours a week, maybe you get to actually take vacations, those kinds of things. So as we talk about franchising, it's not for everyone. It's not the right time, right place, right skill set for everyone. It does require money, and the more, as Don described it, the more mature a franchise system is, the more they're going to charge you up front, because they have a longer term investment into it. They'll want a higher upfront fee plus a higher percentage of your revenue as a royalty on operating under their brand. And in some cases, that price is a bargain. In other cases, it's too expensive. So you've got to really do your due diligence on them, treat it like an investment, which is what it is. And if the investment makes sense, then jump on it.
Yeah, well, words of wisdom should be well taken. Let me just share that we've got some people here. Usman's here. I know Usman, I hope I pronounce it properly, is also supported and been seen on Harvey's show and Carl's show. So thank you for tuning in. Got a comment from Carrie I'll put out there. I have jokes. Can you build a business with joke telling? Definitely. And you know what that brings to mind, Carrie, is subscriptions, right? And that's another relationship you can have with a party that ties you closer than just throwing it out there and people seeing it. And usually it's about subscribing to my joke of the day, right? And maybe it's $2 a month. Go ahead, Karl.
Yeah, no, I'm going to jump on that concept. I was at this program on Monday night, and while they were trying to swap the speakers in and out to move them to the front of the room to use the microphones, the guy was trying to tell jokes to keep the audience occupied. I can tell you those jokes were so bad, and he was feeling badly about how bad his jokes were going over. He might have entertained a subscription service, as you described it, Don, that where for $2 a month, like a phone app, he would get 10 jokes that he could use anytime he's going to be in front of a room or to share with his friends or whatever, and would consider that a bargain because he's getting quality jokes that make him look good and help him do whatever it is he's trying to do. I'm also intrigued, Carrie, I'm just going to throw this out since we have talked with you online through the show a few times. Have you ever considered trying to use AI to help you generate new state-of-the-art, state-of-the-moment type of jokes? Because we all know, like, when the Broncos play well here in Denver, everybody praises them. And when they don't, they make fun of them. They call them the donkeys and stuff like that. There is a potential for you to use AI. I'm just throwing this out as an idea to create jokes of the moment. Ones that are good probably have a 24-hour life before they're stale and it's no longer a topic of the day. And they can be good jokes or they can be dark jokes. where you may be doing stuff that people go, ooh, that's a terrible joke, or feel really bad, but I'm going to laugh anyway, kind of a joke. But I think Don's making a good suggestion. Think about a subscription service. I mean, even on my newsletter, okay, if I had a subscription that for so many dollars a month, I could drop a joke into each of my newsletters every day about entrepreneurs or the grand act of raising funding, I'm interested. And so I would be, as you would call it, a prototypical customer that I'd be interested in trying it out and seeing how that might work.
Yeah, and and that does hold true in so many models where the free version is something that naturally is free, gets a lot of attention, and the benefit is you get to try it out without having to pay for it. But they make it so that it's only so good because they throw commercials in, like on subscription music channels, right? You get the free channel, and then every 15 minutes they hit you. I ended up buying a subscription because maybe they planned it, but they kept commercializing pharmaceutical products. And you'd be listening to 10 or 12 minutes of easy listening, and all of a sudden, all you heard was 15 seconds of side effects, and it would take your mindset away, and you pay just to eliminate the obstacles that they put in there. And one good thing about subscriptions is once people start paying, they continue to pay. Someone once said, how many Netflix videos would you rent if you had to put a credit card in every time you wanted to watch a movie? Probably not many. But after a while, it's like, well, for whatever it is, I get this, even though now you got Amazon, you got Prime Video, you've got HBO and Max. So pretty soon you can watch 1,000 different movies. But the benefit is that you don't have to think about it. You have more choices, and it's what's comfortable. So some things are not always, did I make money or spend money? It's how much time did it save me? How much opportunities and options did it present for me? And, a subscription model, and, me and Karl have subscribers to our newsletter. It usually lends itself to a premium feature. In other words, everybody gets this, and if that's what you like, then that's what you should have, and that's what I want you to have. But if, a lot of times early information, the people who subscribe will get mine 2 days early, will be part of a pool that I'll reward with new features. And, again, it's leveraging a lot for a little per each, but collectively it can add up to a lot more. So again, we're all talking to some extent about how do you sustain and scale something. If all you want to monetize something, but it's not scalable or sustainable, it's like start and stop, or how many trips would you take knowing you're only going to get halfway home before you can't get any further. So it's really understanding value. I think at the bottom of everything we're talking about is how much value are you providing to the marketplace. And if there's enough value for you and for the person participating, it's a qualified model. If it's like, well, jokes are going to cost you $1,000 a day, and unless you're somebody like Jerry Seinfeld, who's in the joke business, that $1,000 a day would be a bargain if you could find that person to employ. And actually, they have those companies that take celebrities and will customize a message for you. I know John Lovitz, my son-in-law's dad enjoys John Lovitz, so he was on a service, and for $350, you tell him who it is, what it is, and in 10 or 15 minutes, he'll provide you with a greeting directly from him. And if you can do it in 15 minutes at $350 an hour, and you can knock out 3 or 4 an hour, $1,400 an hour is better than getting on a plane and flying to a venue and having to go through all the rigmarole. But it's also a way today of having multiple streams of income. So a lot of people would say, well, I'm doing this, but I'm only getting paid so much for it. If I extended a little bit more and got another source of income or a new market, well, I'm getting this more money for the same amount of time and work. And, it makes a lot of sense. So introducing something like Karl says, when you're brand new, you got to prove yourself. You're higher risk, which means you can't expect a lot. But what it is get to know me, get to like me, get to trust me. And when we have that relationship, now we're in a better position to move beyond it versus let's get to the end before we got to the middle or beginning. And, as you do it, you get better at it. So, even if, you're on LinkedIn, Carrie, make that your headline. You know, I'm a jokester, love sharing and telling jokes. If you're interested, subscribe. And again, LinkedIn will allow you to have a newsletter. In the newsletter, you can qualify as anything else, go in business for yourself. And once you get good at it, or once you get some feedback, then you can take it to the next level as the enterprise version or the premium model. And you can also always see the copper, the silver, the gold, the platinum models, and at every level. And just like Restream, it gives you 4 or 5 different options. Zoom in the same way. There's a free Zoom version, but it's not applicable for anybody who does it professionally, but it's enough to get you to know Zoom. And they understand that, and they understand people got to, let's say, walk before they run, got to get comfortable. The other thing I'll say about franchisors is they always have, or they typically have the ability, and maybe it's changed somewhat, of going to headquarters. And part of the fee is you get 2 weeks at McDonald's University. And you get to see exactly how it is, why it is, where it is. And a lot of people look, well, geez, it's a couple grand worth of travel expenses and this and that. But hey, if you're going to put that much time, that much money into something, why not press the flesh? Why not know who the head of franchising is? Why not see what works and what doesn't work? Curiosity might have killed the cat, but it might have saved a lot of businesses. By exploring a little bit more, asking questions. One good thing I'll say about most businesses, don't be shy, about what your questions are. If they got an 800 line, use it. If they got a manual, read it. If there's something you don't understand, question it, because you got to go all in as much as you can at the end of the day to say, it's not just success or failure, it's the extent of success or failure. Some franchisors make 10% return, some make 40% return. It's how they operate, it's how they engineer what they're doing. So we're about 57 minutes into it. So Karl, final thoughts on franchising?
Yeah, I think that running a franchise as a franchisee is no different than running any other business. It's a business. You got to put all your time and energy into it. You're going to be an entrepreneur. You're going to have to make the commitment just like you would if something else. But if you're looking for a quicker start, a safer start, something that's more defined for those who really appreciate regimens and procedures and processes, you may find that being a franchisee is the best choice to get going, get started. If you're a youngster who's thinking about having your first business ever, you may want to consider being a franchisee to get your creds, build your capabilities, build your skill set without subjecting yourself to all the different risk that might be associated with just throwing up your own shingle and going out and doing whatever it is you want to do. And it's kind of like an apprenticeship. It may be a safer path to learning what you need to learn without getting killed off along the way. So we don't want to make your running a business like a Survivor show where you get kicked out before the show even gets started. You want to be there at the end of the story and be able to participate in the rewards of running a business. So one for speed, one for a start, one for people who prefer a more defined business operation. These are all primary factors to look at in considering franchising. And for those of you who don't have enough money to buy a franchise, then maybe you should look into raising funding and give me a call.
Well, not only raising funding, but knowledge awareness to go with it. So when you choose to either go forward with a franchise, you have the wherewithal as far as knowledge and financing to do it right. Because there are people who kind of, I wouldn't say cheap out, but only have so much, and it's going to take them even more time to level up at that point. And some things that comes to mind, last thing is, let's say you love driving people. Well, you could have your own driving company. In the past, you could become a taxi driver. But look at what happened to taxis when Uber came in. It changed the whole industry, and everybody decided, well, why would I be a yellow cab when I can just work when I want? They tell me, hey, there's a fare here, and it built all that efficiency. And meanwhile, Uber is a multi-billion-dollar valued business that wasn't even around, years ago. And tomorrow, someone else may come up with a better operating system, better marketing system, and you're in the driver's seat because you can just switch tomorrow to whoever it is who's the player of the day and follow their lead. And I think that's the key is what's hot, what's exciting. Really, fees aren't that significant for service type businesses like Uber, but there's value. So with that said, I love talking about franchising. I mean, we can talk about anything because one thing we do have over a lot of people that's verifiable is experience and time. And some things have never changed over 100 years, and some things change every 2 minutes. So it's nice to have a little blend of both of them and have a little seasoning, because some things sound new, but they're just a takeoff of something that's been around a very long time, but just got re-engineered to be more relevant. So if you want to hear more, because we have more to say, feel free to reach out to Karl for a 15-minute call or myself. And love to hear from you because we really appreciate feedback. We want to know what we could be doing better or what we're not doing as much of, and we'll change our approach to accommodate you. So with that, thank you all. See you tomorrow. We've got Kelly, Dave, and Jason back. And the word tomorrow, I believe, is reinvention. And that's something we're always trying to do. So with that said, take care. Bye for now.